The body always speaks before the mind admits the truth. For weeks, I told myself I was fine. That the hollow eyes, the jittery hands, the constant ache in my chest were just temporary side effects of stress. That I could push through it, the way I'd always pushed through everything. But one morning, my body stopped asking politely. It was during a meeting with my legal team. They were going over deposition prep, flipping through binders stacked so high they looked like barricades. I was scribbling notes, my pen moving faster than my thoughts, when the room tilted. The pages blurred, the voices warped, and suddenly I couldn't catch my breath. My heart galloped against my ribs like it was trying to break free. "Julie," Daniel's voice, sharp with worry. I tried to answer, but the words stuck in my throat. My pen clattered to the table, and before I could stop it, the room was spinning. Next thing I knew, I was on the floor, someone's jacket under my head, my team crowding around me, their faces pale. By the time the paramedics arrived, I'd steadied enough to protest. "I'm fine," I insisted, pushing myself up. "Just dehydrated." But the looks in their eyes told me no one believed it. At the hospital, the doctor was blunt. "Exhaustion. Severe stress. If you keep this pace, your body will shut down. You need rest, Ms. Kensington. Real rest. Not an hour of sleep at your desk. Rest." The word sounded like luxury, like weakness. I wanted to laugh. How could I rest when my family was circling like vultures, waiting for the smallest sign of weakness? And yet, lying in that hospital bed, for humming beside me, I realized something terrifying. They were winning. Not in court, not in contracts, but in the war that mattered most. The one inside me. If I burned out, if I collapsed completely, Red Cannon would crumble. And that was their true strategy all along. When I was discharged the next morning, Daniel drove me home. He didn't speak until we were parked outside my house. "You can't keep doing this alone," he said quietly. "They're counting on you to self-destruct. Don't give them what they want." I wanted to argue, to insist I didn't need help. But the truth sat heavy in my chest. He was right. I wasn't invincible. And pretending I would only hand the Kensingtons the victory they craved. That evening, as I sat at my kitchen table, phone buzzing with unanswered calls, I stared at the city lights through the window. For the first time in years, I felt fragile. But fragility didn't have to mean defeat. If the Kensingtons wanted to weaponize my exhaustion, I'd have to turn the tables. Not by hiding my struggle, but by building safeguards. By leaning on the people who had stood by me. By proving that Red Cannon wasn't just me, it was a team, a vision, a force they couldn't erase. Still, as I closed my eyes that night, I couldn't shake the unease. Because I knew my family. And if they had sensed my breaking point, if they had even the faintest whiff of weakness, their next move would be brutal. And I had to be ready. I didn't even make it 48 hours before they pounced. By the time I returned to the office, headlines were already spreading like wildfire. Julie Kensington hospitalized amid legal turmoil. Red Cannon founder collapses during strategy meeting. Can she handle a $2.5B waterfront project? They hadn't even bothered with subtlety. My father's fingerprints were all over the leaks, carefully timed statements, anonymous sources confirming I'd been under strain for months. Caroline's favorite society blogger chimed in with pitying commentary, painting me as fragile, unstable, unfit. And Matthew, of course, couldn't resist. He gave a smug soundbite outside the Kensington Group headquarters. "Julie's always been sensitive. The pressure of real leadership is different than running side projects in the shadows. We wish her well, but our focus remains on serious business." I slammed my laptop shut, heat rising in my chest. They weren't just attacking my health. They were undermining my capacity to lead, to win the waterfront contract, to hold Red Cannon together. "They'll keep twisting it unless you control the story," Daniel said gently from across my desk. "And how do I do that?" I snapped. "Hold a press conference with my blood pressure readings? Give them my hospital charts." He didn't flinch. "No. You show them what they can't fake. That Red Cannon isn't about one person. It's about the work, the projects, the people. If they want to paint you as weak, you prove the company's stronger than ever." He was right. For too long, the Kensingtons had centered their attacks on me. My image. My reputation. My health. It was time to shift the spotlight. That afternoon, I called the team together. The room was crowded, faces tense. They'd seen the headlines. They'd heard the whispers. "I won't lie to you," I began, voice steady. "Yes, I had a health scare. Yes, I've been under pressure. But I want you to understand something. Red Cannon is not one person. It's all of us. And no headline, no smear, no Kensington trick can erase that." I pointed to the blueprints pinned to the wall. Every project we've completed, every building standing tall out there, it wasn't me alone. It was engineers, designers, builders, planners. It was you. That's our strength. And that's why we'll outlast them. The shift in the room was subtle, but real. Shoulders squared. Eyes sharpened. They weren't following me because I was invincible. They were following because I was honest, and because Red Cannon meant something bigger. The next day, we launched a quiet campaign. Not glossy ads or flashy PR. Just stories. Photos of Red Cannon workers on job sites. Short videos of families moving into homes we'd built. Testimonials from contractors about fair wages, safe practices, real partnerships. We flooded social media with the truth. Not about me, but about us. The Kensingtons had their dynasty, their name, their press machine. But I had something they didn't. Authenticity. And authenticity, once the world saw it, was hard to erase. Still, as I watched the campaign gain traction, I knew the Kensingtons wouldn't retreat. If anything, this would push them to hit harder. And the next blow, I suspected, wouldn't just come through headlines. It would come through something far more dangerous. The smear campaign hadn't worked the way they'd hoped. Sure, the tabloids had their fun, and investors sent nervous emails. But our authenticity campaign had legs. The testimonials, the photos, the human stories, they cut through the noise in ways no press release from my father's cronies ever could. For the first time in weeks, I breathed easier. Maybe we'd found the angle that could finally blunt their attacks. Then the waterfront bid started to unravel. It was subtle at first. A city official who'd been warm suddenly stopped returning calls. A subcommittee meeting got postponed without explanation. Rumors circulated that certain concerns had been raised about Red Cannon's capacity to handle a project of this scale. By the time Daniel and I sat down with a council member for lunch, the picture sharpened. "Look, Julie," he said, lowering his voice, "off the record, your family has been working the back channels, whispering that your company's finances are shaky, that your hospitalization shows instability in leadership." And he hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "There's talk of improprieties with your environmental impact data." I almost choked on my water. "That's a lie. We've gone above and beyond environmental compliance. I've personally reviewed every line." He spread his hands. "I know. But rumors don't have to be true to slow things down. They just have to be loud." And the Kensingtons had megaphones in every corner of city politics. Back at the office, I gathered my senior team. "They're going after the bid itself now. We need airtight proof, financials, compliance records, everything, ready to drop at a moment's notice." My head engineer, Marisol, leaned forward. "We can pull together the environmental reports and have them verified independently. It'll take a week, but it'll crush that angle." "Do it," I said. "And keep it clean. If they want a war of shadows, we'll fight in the light." Even as I said it, I knew the truth. The Kensingtons thrived in shadows because they owned half the people who worked there. That night, Daniel caught me staring at the waterfront blueprint spread across my dining table, my dinner untouched. "They're scared," he said quietly. "Then why does it feel like they're winning?" "Because you're playing fair. And they're not." I rubbed my temples. "So what?" I stooped to their level. "No," he said firmly. "But you anticipate it. If they're planting rumors, assume they'll escalate to planting evidence. If they're lobbying officials, assume bribes are in play. Get ahead of it." His words lodged in my chest. He was right. The Kensingtons weren't just ruthless. They were predictable in their ruthlessness. Which meant if I thought like them, not acted like them, but thought like them, I could be ready. 2 days later, Marisol returned with bad news. "We found something. Someone slipped a falsified appendix into our environmental reports." It lists inflated emissions figures. If this had been submitted, it could have tanked us. I felt the room spin again, but not from exhaustion this time. From fury. They'd crossed into outright sabotage. They're not just trying to win the bid, I said slowly, my voice like ice. They're trying to bury Red Cannon for good. I looked around the table, at the faces of the people who'd built this company with me, who'd chosen me when my family erased me. They want a war? I whispered. Fine. Let's give them one they'll never forget. The forged appendix sat on the conference table, a thin packet of paper that felt heavier than steel. I stared at it, every muscle in my body taut. If Marisol hadn't caught the discrepancies, it might have slipped through to the city. And once it did, even proving it false wouldn't have mattered. The damage would have been done. This is war, Marisol muttered, arms crossed tight. Straight up sabotage. And sloppy, Daniel added. Whoever planted this thought you'd be too distracted to notice. They underestimated you. Maybe. But I knew better. The Kensingtons didn't underestimate. They planned. If this piece had failed, it meant they had others already in play. And that changed the game. I want everything in this building swept, I said. Documents, servers, email logs. If there's one plant, there could be more. My team scattered, urgency humming in the air. But as they worked, my mind ran faster. My family wanted me reactive, angry, frantic, scrambling to plug leaks. That was their game. Mine would be different. If they wanted to bury me with lies, I'd show the world their fingerprints on the shovel. But not yet. Not until I had the proof wrapped in iron and their arrogance baited into plain sight. That night, I met Daniel in my kitchen, the lights dim, coffee cooling between us. They'll keep coming, I said, my voice low. Reports, rumors, bribes. They'll throw everything at me until something sticks. So flip it, he said. Make them overplay their hand. Leave them a trail to follow when you control. When they pounce, you'll have them caught in the act. A trap. The thoughts settled into me like steel. Dangerous, yes. Risky, absolutely. But it was the only way to beat them at their own game without becoming them. Over the next week, we laid the groundwork. I had my IT head, Chloe, plant draft documents into our system. Files that looked authentic but contained subtle, traceable markers invisible to the naked eye. If they were lifted or altered, we'd know exactly when, where, and how. Meanwhile, Marisol prepared duplicate sets of our environmental data, real ones under lock and key, decoys left just tempting enough to invite tampering. And Daniel? He worked his network, reaching out quietly to a handful of journalists known for their integrity. Don't run anything yet, he told them. But when the time comes, you'll want to see this. It felt strange, playing chess in shadows, anticipating moves before they happened. But for the first time, I wasn't reacting to my family. I was steering them. Still, I couldn't shake the unease. Setting traps meant waiting. And waiting meant leaving the enemy space to move. Late one night, walking through the quiet Red Cannon offices, I paused in front of the blueprint for the waterfront project. The lines, the scope, the ambition. It was the biggest thing we'd ever attempted. And it was exactly why my family couldn't allow me to succeed. They weren't just fighting for control of a project. They were fighting to erase the possibility of me ever eclipsing them. But I wasn't that erased girl anymore. This time when they struck, I'd be ready. And when the trap snapped shut, it wouldn't just expose their sabotage. It would destroy the illusion of their untouchable dynasty. The first ripple came 3 days later. Chloe burst into my office, laptop in hand, her usually calm face lit with barely contained triumph. They touched it, she said, breathless. She spun the screen toward me. There it was, the decoy environmental draft I'd asked her to plant, the one with the embedded tracking markers. Someone had pulled it from our system, copied it, and scrubbed the metadata, or so they thought. What's the trace? I asked, leaning closer. Bounced through 3 shells, she explained, fingers flying across the keyboard. But whoever did it wasn't careful enough. The trail ends at a device registered to a shell company. Guess who owns it? I didn't need to guess. Kensington Group. My pulse thrummed, sharp and hot. They'd taken the bait. But I forced myself to stay steady. This wasn't the moment to shout victory. One stolen draft was a thread. I needed the whole web. Let them keep nibbling, I said. The more they take, the deeper the trail. And nibble they did. Over the next week, subtle distortions began surfacing. A city aide forwarded us concerns about discrepancies in the data, discrepancies that only appeared in the decoy reports. A journalist called Daniel, hinting that an anonymous source was feeding them damaging documents about Red Cannon's finances, the same doctored files we'd salted in the system. It was almost beautiful in its predictability. My family couldn't resist the chance to weaponize what they thought was hidden dirt. They were thieves who didn't know the vault was rigged. Still, the waiting gnawed at me. Nights stretched long, my nerves pulled taut like piano wires. Every time the phone buzzed, I braced for the trap to spring prematurely. Daniel noticed. "You're coiled so tight you're going to snap," he murmured one evening as we walked the waterfront site. The air smelled of salt and diesel, cranes looming against the sunset. "I just want it done," I admitted. "Every day they drag this out, the more it costs. The more it frays the people counting on me." He stopped, turning me gently to face him. "Julie, they're playing checkers. You're playing chess. Don't rush your checkmate." I wanted to argue, but he was right. The timing mattered. If I exposed them too early, they'd wriggle free, spin it as a misunderstanding. I needed them so deep, so entangled, that denial would be impossible. The breakthrough came on a Wednesday morning. Chloe's message popped onto my phone. They altered the decoy and submitted it to the city council. Trail intact. "We have everything." I sat back in my chair, the weight of the words sinking in. They hadn't just stolen. They'd acted. They'd crossed the line from rumor to fraud. And with every keystroke, they'd left their fingerprints behind. I closed my eyes, a long breath shuddering out of me. The trap was shut. Now it was only a matter of how *and when* to spring it open for the world to see.